Welcome to the Female by Design podcast, an honest space for female flourishing. I'm Francie Winslow. Together, we'll explore sexuality and spirituality by God's design, healing our relationship with pleasure, our bodies, and our identity as beloved image bearers. So let's take a deep breath and step into God's invitation to live fully alive as women. Mind, body, and spirit. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Francie, and today I want to take another step into exploring what it looks like to grow in our connection to pleasure, practically, not just theoretically or scripturally, but practically. So, welcome. I am right now adjusting my body and my chair to have more posture, to sit up. And to take a deep breath, to feel my rib cage opening. Sometimes I even like to rub my hands like I'm making friction with my hands. I don't know if you can hear this through the mic, but I like to do that because it even feels like warmth created in between my hands brings a fresh awareness to my nervous system about the aliveness of my body and connection to my body. Sometimes I like to put some essential oils. Often I do in my car. I'll put them between my hands and just rub them and then take a really nice, slow, deep breath in. Kind of cupping my hands around my mouth and my nose so that I can smell something beautiful, something that awakens my senses and connects me to this sense of being awake in my body. Things like that you can do all throughout the day are little tools that help reconnect you to the divine design of God for your body to be engaged and awake. And that's one of the things I want to talk about is how do we intentionally engage this idea of pleasure in our bodies in normal life. So God, thank you for the gift of learning and growing. Thank you that you are the God of growth. You are the God of stewardship. You are the God of creation, which is constantly expanding and more to explore, understand, and be in awe of, because you are an infinite source of wisdom and an infinite source of beauty, and you are the object of our affection. So we love to learn about you and your beautiful designs, and I pray that you would guide our hearts, minds, and bodies into more of an awareness of you, in Jesus' name. So today I want to talk about what reading sex books has done for my marriage. As I've mentioned in the past, reading sex books used to be something that was very threatening to me. Early in our marriage, many of you have maybe heard this story, but we did not have much money. And so we lived right down the street from a Barnes & Noble back in the day when people went to Barnes & Noble. And we actually had two bookstores close to our apartment in Chicago. And so we would frequent either one of those, and we would take a sex book and we would read them. I would take another book and put it on the outside of that sex book because I was petrified that anyone would walk in and see, oh, Francie is reading a sex book. It was just so embarrassing. And we didn't buy the books because we didn't have enough money, but we would take the ideas home and talk about them and see what we could practice. And I like the idea in theory. I like the idea of going on a date. I like the idea of quality time. But when it came time to actually share about what I had learned or even really process what I had learned, it was like it was hitting a brick wall inside of me because I had so much shame around the idea of even growing in sexuality. I had believed erroneously that to get married means you just have sex and there's no growing needed. You just do what you do, just kind of like you learn how to eat and you always eat. It's not like a skill that you have to learn how to pick up that fork better every time. I just didn't understand that there was layers and nuances and endless capacity really to grow in pleasure and knowledge of each other and sharing of love. I saw it as very robotic and very predictable and very limited. And I was okay with that, mostly because that supported my worldview that sex is kind of scary and kind of dirty and a little bit far off of my reservation. I just wasn't sure how to process it, how to grid it. I didn't know how to proceed with joy. All I knew was proceed with caution because this would probably get you in trouble. Back up to reading the book. So bless my husband's heart, he's always been a learner and wanting to grow. And as he's been very patient, I've had a number of men email me and say, what do I do if my wife doesn't want to grow? And I'll just say to any of you listening, that's me. And I had a very patient husband who loved me very well through my hesitancies and was very, very patient and didn't push me or shame me, but met me where I was and enjoyed me in the ways that I was able to be present. And it was God, I think, softening my heart. And it was also my husband's very patient, very kind love towards me and constant affirmation of me that began to heal the rough and broken parts of me. And those were parts covered in shame. And I'll just name it, I think, covered in shame from growing up in Christian culture that had year after year after year after year emphasized to me that my body's dangerous, that my beauty is dangerous, that my sexuality is dangerous. And if anybody hears that over and over and over and over again, that you are inherently dangerous because you're a female, because your modesty has the capacity to overthrow a man of God, that is a scary thing. So what does a woman who wants to love God do? She dissociates from her body. She pieces out because it's way too dangerous to be that connected to something so dangerous and powerful. And so I didn't ever see my sexuality as good or something to be nourished or grown. It was something to make smaller and smaller part of my life because it was so powerful in a negative way. I think that's a lie from the pit of hell. I think that is a total distortion of female beauty. And I think it's been used to abuse and silence and shame women for generations. And it is stopping in my house. We are not propelling or promoting that idea for women in relation to modesty or their bodies being dangerous in any way. Women's bodies are amazing and beautiful, and anybody can use their strengths for good or for evil, but it is not about a woman's body being dangerous. That is the problem. I'm on a soapbox. But that was part of why I didn't want to grow, is because I did not have a belief that it was good to grow any part of that. And so when I got married, I didn't know how to bridge the gap between shut it down and disassociate from that and embrace and grow this. It was a long road of healing for me. But one of the paths forward was reading books in small increments as I could and implementing the small things of the books that we read that I could until my window of tolerance grew. So what we're talking really about is a traumatized nervous system where you have been told something is dangerous or you've experienced something to be dangerous for so long that you live in a state of hypervigilance around that topic. And I would say that many Christian women that I talk to are in a state of hypervigilance when we talk about sexuality. And also many Christian men have a pretty shut down sexual nature because we've been so conditioned to be afraid of sexuality and to put it at odds with our spirituality. And so as time went on and I grew, my window of tolerance, which is a window, it's a word that is not literal, but my space within my nervous system to maintain regulation around a certain idea, topic, or experience, my capacity for that grew little bit by little bit, the more safe experience I had around that topic. So if I continued to have experiences of safety around sexuality and my nervous system and my body and my mind felt like I'm cared for, I'm safe, then my capacity for a little bit more became a little larger. So my window of tolerance, how much I could tolerate of that topic, grew. And so the more we learned and the more Wyatt was so gentle with me and so honoring and so kind and affirming and patient, the more capacity I had to read books. So that's what I really want to talk about, but also why reading books can be tricky when you have been traumatized, having grown up in potentially a religious culture that shames your body, that shames sexuality, that makes it feel like that is incongruent with living a holy life. So the more we grew together, the more inner healing I did, the more re-believing I did of what is actually true of the design of God, the anatomy of woman that God made, and the ways that it blesses our marriage union, and the ways that it honors our connection, and the ways that it takes care of us together, the more I realized this is actually good and worth learning about. So when we read books, the good part of reading and growing is that it can address places where we've believed lies. It can address places we've been ignorant about our anatomy, and it can educate us. And so it's a capacity for reading and learning and sharing. The other great thing about reading books together is it allows you to have someone else's language when your language is stunted. That's another thing we learned in our marriage, is that we were literally stunted in our vocabulary for sexual communication, whether it was passionate communication or anatomical communication, because we had been so sheltered from any exposure to healthy sexual communication. So enter books. Books help you get vocabulary for what you want to say, for what you want to feel, for what you do feel, for what you want more of or less of. And it gives you a capacity that grows as well. Not only your window of tolerance grows, but your vocabulary grows. And so it's a way to grow in that sense, teaching us anatomy, practical wisdom, and gave us a space to really connect on a sexual topic that one or both of us might be unaware of, or one or both of us may have hesitation about. It's kind of like a neutral ground where we can say, hey, let's just let this author hold court and we can talk about their ideas together, rather than it be like one of us has an idea and the other doesn't like it. This is the author's idea. What do we think about the author? So you could use my podcast as that. You could use me as the scapegoat and be like, Francie says this. What do you think? What do I think? That way the pressure is off of either partner and it's on the person providing the information. Reading books together gave us ideas also of just simple things like how to touch. And it gave us how to feel, how to talk, how to express desire. It gave us a jumping off point for actually practicing pleasure, because that's a whole other idea, is that pleasure doesn't just happen, especially in a long-term monogamous marriage. Pleasure needs to be cultivated and grown and practiced. It's not just like this snappy feeling that comes and goes with time. It's something that is like an art form that's cultivated. Reading books together also helped us learn to listen to each other's bodies. It helped us to get a roadmap for his and her experiences that are so different than our own, and gave us capacity to really listen to each other. So I wanted to share with you 2 books that are great, that I recommend. There are so many podcasts out there, and it doesn't have to be Christian. You can learn from non-Christian books. In fact, that's a majority of what we learned from over the years, because they were specific and they were about anatomy, or they were about very practical things that didn't have to do with theology. And we needed to learn all of it, and we wanted to learn all of it, and it wasn't always available by a Christian publisher. But these 2 are, that I'm going to share with you. Both of them are by the Pinners. First one is called Getting Your Sex Life Off to a Great Start, a guide for engaged and newlywed couples, by Cliff and Joyce Pinner. I really love them. It's actually pretty old, so it makes me laugh when I see it, but I still love it because it is, let's see, when was it printed? In like 1994. But it's great, especially for newlyweds or engaged couples. Another one that I love is primarily for women. It's called Enjoy, The Gift of Sexual Pleasure for Women, by Joyce and Cliff Pinner. They have one for men as well. It's like a paired up one. And yeah, I think I have a whole line of books behind me, a whole library of books that are sex books behind me. I was just looking at them thinking, which other ones do I want to recommend? But I'm just going to stick with those 2 for now, knowing that the list is endless. And once you follow a bit of your curiosity, you'll know what you need more of. Like, do you need more practical? Do you need more nervous system understanding? Do you need more female anatomy? Do you need little quick tips? Do you want more style in terms of, like, there's books on slow sex and like a totally different way to appreciate and express intimacy that's not performative, that's more healing. So there's a whole variety, but I just wanted to bring up the conversation and point it back to what we talked about last week, was that God created a garden called pleasure. Eden was called pleasure, and the garden was an intentional, set apart space that was cultivated, intentionally cultivated. And that is what a beautiful, pleasure-filled marriage and life is about, is intentional cultivation, like a garden. That genuine pleasure that is nourishing doesn't just happen on accident. It doesn't just happen because we had a really nice date and then lights were just right and all the kids were asleep. Pleasure is a way of living connected to relational goodness within yourself and the other, with your spouse. And it takes cultivation. So one of the ways to cultivate pleasure in there, with many, many benefits, including vulnerability and sharing and language and practicals, is reading books or listening to podcasts. So that is a pretty obvious but very practical step in cultivating pleasure in your life that I hope you can take with you today. That has really helped me. It's been a huge catalyst for my healing and recovering of my capacity to really embrace my femininity. And while it's an ongoing journey, I'm finding myself so blessed by books, by authors from a variety of backgrounds, because I'm beginning to listen for design features. And every time I listen to one, I think, oh, that's God's design. Even if it's not Christian, I start realizing that's God's design. That's the body. God made that. God called that good. And I can glean how he made me to function more fully alive because other people have studied the body and can teach me the way. So I hope that you find this helpful. Lord, thank you for the capacity to grow and learn. Thank you for the garden being a place of intentional cultivation. The garden of pleasure is intentionally cultivated. And so I pray for spaces and places of connection and intentional cultivation in my life and for my friends today. In Jesus' name, amen. Bless you guys.